Why is it important to have the legacy of Michael Smith be associated with inflection points?
You put Michael Smith in air quotes, not legacy. You
I
put,
no 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 no. I did that because I wanted to preface. I was thinking about saying this before I even asked the question. Is I disdain when people use like when you use the third person, just
yeah.
because of the level of
Okay.
arrogance. But I also
Okay.
but when you're in the realm of being a personality and stuff, you
Right.
do
Right.
kind of refer to the entity as like what
I got you.
people. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. I get it. That makes a whole lot of sense. That
So
makes a
it's
whole lot of
you,
sense.
but it's like,
Yes. It's
but
like
like,
the idea of me.
right?
I
Yes.
got you. No, I was like, no, that's my name. I
With
was like,
all
no,
with
that's
the
my name.
Michael
Yeah.
Smith.
Like, yeah, we know that's like a made up fake name. Which, by the way, when you have a name like Michael Smith, people be like, really? Yeah, my dad just was unoriginal, named me after himself. But no, why is it important to be connected to inflection points? It's just for me personally speaking, those are the defining moments of my life, and I think they're the defining moments of all of our lives and all of our stories. That's when the stories get good.
Absolutely.
um, in the moment, we don't identify them with a fancy term like an inflection point because, our emotions override our reason and our logic or even our experience. When something happens that's not according to our plan, um, you know, we assign a negative to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like a setback. It feels like a stumbling block or an obstacle. And then when you look back, you're like, oh no, that was just, that was that detour sign, that helped me avoid that traffic, or got me
Mm,
on a path to either
right.
the destination I was always going to end up at or a better destination. Um, and so I look back in my life and my career, and when I think about, the moments that define me, there were always these inflection points where, you know, one way or the other, and it obviously could have been different. And so, from a storytelling standpoint, I like telling those stories. I like telling stories through that lens, um, because I think everybody needs to be reminded of that. That adversity is not necessarily a bad thing, and because as the old saying goes, it doesn't develop character; it reveals it.
Mm,
So I've grown to embrace adversity. I've grown to enjoy inconvenience. You know, if life was scripted, how boring would that be? You know what I mean? Like it's so,
it's
like
pretty predictable, actually.
you know,
Yeah. I mean,
it's it.
you're watching that movie and you know what's going to happen, or you know who did it at the beginning of the SVU episode. You're like, all right, come on
Yeah,
now.
like it's. I think the fun part is figuring this thing out along the way and adjusting, um, you know, to unforeseen circumstances or you know trying to hit a curveball.
Yeah.
Like so. My life and my career has been one of reinvention, um, and it's brought out the best in me. I feel
Mm.
like
I think a
I
lot
think
of
it brings out the
people,
best in us.
absolutely. I think a lot of people, at some point in time, someone may have heard you say the whole concept of what's the saying, when we playing God laughs, like everyone is
Yeah,
feeling that now with
yeah,
2020 being what it was.
yeah,
The canceled cruises, the canceled flights, the canceled birthdays, the canceled weddings. I mean, how many people's weddings are completely derailed because of that? But it is boils down to inflection points, and I'm glad that you've put, and this company has put, a positive spin on adversity and obstacles, because there is so much growth going through. I mishandled this scheduling yesterday, and we had a very hard conversation that I felt like made us closer. And I
for
afterwards,
sure.
I felt so much better within our relationship within this
See,
company
yeah,
from that adversity that happened inadvertently, that wasn't on either of our shoulders, but
right.
it's one of those God
I
working.
felt I felt the same way. I felt the same way. Not just that, because it's like um, we had this conversation yesterday, and it's great, but we had a moment together, like you said, that feeds into our relationship, and then But between those two, the missed call and the conversation we had later, after that, you know, we have our first sale. We sell our first project. And so I'm sitting here now having this conversation as somebody who has actually sold the project finally, versus yesterday, if we have it at this time, it's like, well, I got a follow-up meeting today. We'll see how it goes. And so, no, man, I mean, the other thing about inflection points that people have to realize is that there's no time frame. Sometimes it could be, very brief. Sometimes it could be months or years. I mean, even just the history of this company, and I don't know how much I've even shared this with you, but so I leave ESPN in September of 2019. I joined a startup called Collaboratory as executive vice president and chief content officer. It was a young company, a fairly new company. They got started like, 8, 9 months earlier. And I was joining somebody else's vision.
Right.
Okay. I was falling in line with somebody else's vision, which I felt it at the very beginning, but I was like, okay, I could still come in and establish myself and make it my own and figure it out. And it was honestly, it was a fancy title. Executive vice president and chief content officer. Doesn't matter if the company had ever done anything. It's like, oh,
Right.
and because what it did, it represented growth for me. Like I was stagnant at the end of the ESPN.
On paper.
It represented growth. Yeah, on paper. Paper that it wasn't even worth the contract, wasn't even worth the paper it was written on. So I go to Collaboratory. That lasts 7 weeks before that falls apart. 2 of the 3 co-founders. So at that point, I'm like, oh shit. What have I done? I left ESPN for this shit, right? 2 of the 3 co-founders from Collaboratory decide, hey, we're going to keep this venture going. Will you come and be our partner? Equal equity partner. I'm like, oh, cool. So I get a promotion out the deal. Now I'm a partner. We're like, oh, that sounds fancy. I'm a partner. It's my company, but it wasn't really mine. Never was. From day one, there were little things that they would say or do, or that was pretty obvious that, yo, this ain't mine. Like I'm a partner and we have equal equity, but it's not, I don't really have ownership.
It's
There's
hard
a
to fake.
difference.
I was going to say it's hard to fake ownership because you can't fake the funk with ownership.
And so, but that said, I'm there for, we started it in a breather in New York in December. I'm there until August. So not 8, 9 months or whatever. And I'm building it and I'm putting all my energy toward it. But in the back of my mind, quite candidly, it was always like, yeah, I'm not long for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not so much the shit hit the fan, but the straw broke the camel's back. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm out. And then Dwayne and I started Inflection Point Entertainment, which was a name. He and I had talks for quite a while about, hey, in a couple of years, we're going to do this ourselves. I didn't know that once again, I was going to be pushed into this.
Right.
ESPN pushed me out for all intents and purposes. And Game One pushed me into Inflection Point sooner than I had in mind. Okay. And so Inflection Point, before it became this common phrase that everybody from political pundits to the presidential elect started uttering,
man,
in this current zeitgeist in 2020, this so-called racial reckoning, that had personal meaning to me and Dwayne, because of not just our membership in the Henry Crown Fellowship of the Aspen Institute, and Inflection Points is what that, what that organization's all about. But also, he and I were both at Inflection Points professionally. He had just left Microsoft. I just left ESPN and was trying to figure it out in this content startup space. So to recap, shit goes left at ESPN. Shit goes south at Collaboratory. Shit goes haywire with Game One. And now, Dwayne and I, my lifelong friend, we start our own company, we're doing our own thing. And now I'm doing what it is that I want to do. I'm spending my time the way I want to spend it. I'm working with the people I want to work with on my terms, not somebody else's terms. And so, just my life and my career all along the way is just just a recurring theme of like inflection points and reinvention. It's fun. It keeps you alive. You know,
Absolutely.
shit hitting the fan is not a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Like,
actually I feel some
not
comfortable.
all the time.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable knowing, it's comfortable not trying to hide from inflection points, if that makes any sense. Like embracing them and making yourself a better person to be able to brave the storm, so to speak, once it comes. But I kind of want to go back to you and Dwayne because I was obviously
Yeah.
able to have this conversation with him, and he knows you better than any of us. And I want everyone else to get the opportunity to do so. So I wanted to go to the fact of stories, inflection points, and climaxes, and talk about heroes specifically. And I wanted you to name three heroes that have inspired you to be the person you are today. But I have some stipulations. One of them has to be fictional. One of them has to be historical, and then another one just someone personal in your life that you've come across up until this point.
Fictional
I'll give you an example. Beast always inspired me. I was obviously
from
from
X-Men.
X-Men because he was so athletic and strong, but also really really smart. And he
Oh,
was just he did it both. It was like when I was in fifth grade, I told my library teacher I wanted to be Steve Young because I thought he was a lawyer and a football player. You know what I mean? Like it was I like the duality of being so intellectually strong as well as physically strong. So that's when I say fictional, and I know obviously you're a big Paid in Full fan. So I don't want somebody to go there, but just anyone, a fictional hero as well, because like realistically, coming up, those people inspire us more as much as anyone else.
wow, that's great. Okay, all right. So a fictional character that inspired me. Um, I mean, you wait comic book. Is it too easy for me to go comic book? Is that too easy?
No, I mean obviously I want you to go, but I couldn't just tell you to do it. Like I want, please step into
You
my
you
lane.
yeah, you would like for me to do that?
Yeah, of course.
Um, uh, my favorite Avenger, is Tony Stark. You know,
Mm.
um, and I'm not a genius, a billionaire, a playboy. I try to be a philanthropist, but so I'm not exactly sure why I connect with Iron Man. Um, okay, excuse me. Okay, let me ask you something. Is it okay to say Heathcliff Huxtable?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay,
it is, and
all
this
right.
and this is the time to explain why.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like most kids born in 1979 and growing up in the 80s and 90s or whatever, it's like, you know, I'll say two people. I'll say Heathcliff Huxtable and Uncle Phil.
Mm.
You know, to see two black men, hold it down and keep it real and provide for and protect their families. Um, you know, I, I was raised by a village for sure. My grandfather was a Baptist pastor for 55 years. So I'll skip ahead and I will say a real life hero will be my late grandfather, the Reverend Thomas Nelson Washington. I'll go with him as my real life hero.
Mother side, father side,
Yeah, maternal. Yeah, mother side.
maternal.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
excellent.
so I'm a preacher's grandkid, which meant I sat on the front row. I was the president of the Young Men's Usher Board.
Woo,
I was the last person to lead the church.
man.
Everybody had license to whip my ass. You know what I mean? Like, it's like all of that, right?
So you have a
Uh,
very good. Well, I guess you sit in the front, so you didn't see those fans. But I was thinking about just the paper fans that were just
Oh no, I
always.
had I had I had to have them because when the ladies in the church, and by the ladies I mean my mama, would fall out in between the pews and shit. I got to carry them out, and I got to use the. Oh, so I had a fan handy in my hand, the Martin
Oh
Luther King
man.
fan, the
Oh,
Martin Luther King on one side and the funeral home on the other side.
I was
Absolutely,
about to say there's definitely an
absolutely,
ad.
absolutely, absolutely. So that's my real life one. But I mean, so I was raised by a village, whether it was my biological father, while yes, my parents got divorced, my father was always in my life, even from afar. My stepfather, who raised two boys like they were his own. My uncle, my maternal uncle, my mom's brother. Um, I had teachers, I had coaches, I had a lot of people. And again, like I mentioned, just the church family, like all took an interest in me. But watching, but growing up in New Orleans and watching Heathcliff Huxtable, you know, rep HBCUs and
Yeah.
be unapologetically black and have
Mhm.
a black family in a Brooklyn brownstone,
Mm.
and he was a doctor and she was a lawyer. I'm like, oh shit, and then no talk about a different world came out. Different world, like a lot of people, like a lot of young black people was like, oh, that's what college is. Oh, I want to go to college. College looks cool. Higher
Right.
education looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that looks like that's what I need. I didn't end up going to a HBCU, but speaking of fictional, I mean, Hillman College was what I thought it needed to be in order for me to really, grow into a man. And so, and then Uncle Phil, I mean, you know, just when they lived in Beverly Hills, you know, right? It was Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
mansion
yeah, mansion in Beverly Hills,
with a
and
guest house. I first time I even heard about a guest house was
well,
Saved by the Bell.
but I mean, and you think about, what I love about those sitcoms in particular, and those stories in particular, is our history as Black people is always associated with struggle
Mm-hmm.
and being at the bottom
Right.
and being poor and doing without and robbing Peter to pay Paul and trying to make ends meet. And by the way, confession, I was like last week old when I realized it was like making ends meet, not like meat. I thought it was just some meat that I never heard
Wow.
of, but I thought it was
Making
like
in.
ends meet is the phrase, not like ends meet like beef or steak. I was like, maybe it's just some meat I ain't never had.
Making
But
ends meet.
I thought it
Like you
was
thought it was like the fact that black people eat pig's feet or something like that. You're like it was
exactly.
like
That's exactly what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. Yes, it's like just some shit that's like, oh, okay, like so it's just like must be just
chitlins
some
with
hog
ends
maw or
meet.
some shit. I don't know. Like I don't fucking know. Like yeah, like oh. I was like
Oh man.
ends meat. Like oh like bro. I was like a week ago. That was like 2 weeks ago. I swear on everything. I was like I'm such a dumbass.
And look how far you gotten with that
Bro, I'm
information.
such a dumbass because I felt bad. I felt bad
Oh
because
man.
it wasn't that long ago when I was laughing at Tyrese when that motherfucker was talking about throwing the towel, and it was like the tile on the floor, like TILE. Remember he
Oh
tweeted that
my
shit? I was
god.
like, bruh,
No, that is
you didn't see that? Oh,
throw in the towel.
bruh, it was some either wrestling or boxing match or something, and this motherfucker tweeted, "Throw in the tile," and it was TILE. And I'm like, say, bruh.
Oh
I'm like, that's
man.
dangerous. Like, that's a hazard. I'm like, wait, man, you've been going all this time. Like, it's boxing. It's a towel. Why would
Oh
somebody,
man.
first of all, why would somebody have tiles on standby to throw in the middle of a ring? And what does that have to do with? I was like throwing the tile. I was
It
like,
was
oh,
like maybe he was thinking it was like a physical white flag, like just
it
like
was
throw in the
so bad.
towel.
But then I'm like ends meat. I'm thinking it's like like the ends of the meat or some
Yeah,
shit. Like I'm like because burnt ends. If you ever had burnt ends,
yeah,
they go hard. So I'm like, oh,
yes.
ends meat. Like I was like, but I never thought to think. I never kind of like got deep. Like, well, why do they want
Ends meet.
ends to meet? Why do they
That's
want
so
to make
funny.
ends meet? But anyway, our story is often, and the stories that are told around Black people
Mm-hmm.
often are rooted in oppression or struggle. And it's why, and even in a more modern sense, it's why I love Anthony Anderson and Blackish. It's why I love Kenya Barris, who obviously made Blackish, but made
Yeah.
Black as fuck, which took it to another level. It's like for me to see, and I'm not saying I didn't grow up dirt poor. I mean, you know, lower middle class in New Orleans, which is middle class everywhere else. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
yeah, we didn't, we didn't go hungry. We didn't want for much, if anything. But to watch Black people be Black, but still have means. You know what I mean?
They weren't making the ends meet.
Because even Black people often define Blackness through struggle. Like if you rich, then oh,
Yeah.
you white. It's like,
Right.
oh, okay,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
you ain't really Black. You got money. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
You ain't
right, right.
you don't really know. You ain't one of us because
Yeah.
you uppity. You one of them. You
Right.
live in the suburb. It's like
That's some white
so
shit.
exactly. Well, that's us being brainwashed
Right. Mm-hmm.
into associating prosperity with whiteness.
Yeah.
And so. that was big for me from a fictional standpoint. Tell you the truth, 'cause I grew up being influenced and watching two men provide and protect for their families. So they were fictional role models, if you will. So wait, it was fictional, it was real life, and what was the other one?
Historical.
Historical. Oh my God. I mean, to narrow one down. I mean, listen. I'll just pick one. I mean, I could pick a lot of people, but just on the theme of reinvention, I don't think anybody ever reinvented themselves more dramatically and more significantly than Malcolm X did. You
Man,
know, and
man.
so, I mean, you know, I'm talking about going from literally the gutter to glory and being, you know, one of the most important Americans ever, but specifically of the 20th century.
I want to jump in and
Uh,
say, when you say gutter, I
yeah.
want you to mention mentally as well, like who Little Red
Yes.
was, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's a great distinction. Not just in his actions, not just, you know, as a criminal, not just as somebody, you know, who had quite a few vices. And it's not, but I mean, you want to talk about rehabilitation, and not rehabilitation in terms of the system rehabilitating him, but he was rehabilitated spiritually and mentally by the Nation of Islam, um, and became a different person, and then reinvented himself again
right,
toward the end of his life. You know, which cost him his life, quite
yeah,
honestly. But it's
yeah,
like, you know, you go from Detroit Red and this hustler, you know, and this pimp and this criminal, um, you know, to a minister for the Nation of Islam and a voice for the oppressed. And now, and then you come back and you become like, wait a minute, no, I'm El Haj Malik El Shabazz now. It's just, so I would say just, you know, what he did with his life and what he stood for, but more than anything, the reinvention that he represented um, is profound. I mean, I don't know of a more important book that I've ever read, you know, than his autobiography. And as a matter of fact, I have a book in my iPad that I need to start. They just put out a new one, The Dead They Are Rising. The Dead Are Rising is a biography on Malcolm. The author, a Pulitzer Prize winning author, who I'm ashamed to say his name escapes me, he worked on it for years. He passed, and his daughter finished it
wow,
for him. Yeah. So
wow.
the Dead Are Rising is on my reading list.
Well, I mean, to kind of go back to being brainwashed, I mean, growing up as someone who's born in 1990, but still surrounded by Black culture, literature, art, everything. There was that duality that I was grown to think that Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X was this as realistically opposite as Professor Xavier and Magneto. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and once there was an awakening for me going back and doing my researches about Malcolm X and who he was as an individual. I was like, wow, like how much time did I spend
Thinking he
thinking?
was the bad guy.
What I mean, yeah, but I think what helped me too is obviously being from Louisville, and somebody that helped mold me so much and inspired me so much was Muhammad Ali,
Yep.
and specifically Muhammad Ali versus the Cassius Clay version, and the real life evolution that these men went through. I just felt like I was dealt a disservice by having to box this man who cared so much about me without knowing me into this black hat figure, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean, even, you know, and it happens a lot in in all walks of life. You know, it's like you got to pick one, like Prince or Michael Jackson, you know, LeBron or Mike, Malcolm or Martin. You know what I
Social
mean? It's
media.
like which side you on, as if
Mm-hmm.
as if both of their ideologies weren't rooted in love, you know, and radical love. You
Wow. Yeah.
know, whether it was Malcolm, especially early on, radical love for ourselves, which to that point was not popular,
Hardest
or
part, I feels like that. I mean, that was it was so important, but it's a hard thing to
yeah.
tell someone to love yourself.
Well, to tell someone to love yourself when your oppressor again has historically brainwashed you to think that you are less than, that you are not beautiful, that black is not beautiful. Like
Right.
this country is not built on the idea that black is beautiful. No
Yeah.
matter how much of our culture they've robbed and appropriated, it is not set up for us to be on top. And then Martin, you know, who unfortunately has been co-opted through the years and been reduced to one speech and one line from one speech.
Man,
was as radical as they come. It was as radical as they come, especially toward the end. It was like so radical
yeah,
that many within the black community began to ostracize him for some of his ideas and approaches. So but I thought it's funny. I thought Stan Lee actually nailed it because you know um, Eric and Charles weren't so much polar opposites as it was just two sides to the same coin or two people who just wanted to go about it a different way. It's like Charles for the most part wanted to try for mutants to be able to live peacefully with humans. um, Magneto was just like, history says that ain't the case. But they both, at the end of the day, loved mutants,
right.
you
And they
know,
were
and
fighting for liberation in so many ways.
yeah, yeah, and so I can't say that I would not have been attracted to Magneto and been a part of the Brotherhood if I was a
Right,
mutant. You know
right,
what I mean?
right.
And so, yeah, I would say Malcolm is my historic. So my grandfather, Malcolm X, and Uncle Phil and Heathcliff Huxtable.
Well,
That was a fun exercise. I haven't
uh,
been asked that in a while.
thank you. I feel like it could kind of just add some light and color because as much as we talk about your former employer and where we think we know you from, this is an opportunity for more people to actually get to know you for you out of your mouth.
Yeah.
But I want to finish up with a question that I actually did ask Dwayne, and getting back to Inflection Points. As co-founder of Inflection Point Entertainment, what is one goal that you want this company to accomplish by this time next year?
Um, I think I guess it's a result. Let's put it that way. I
Mm.
think if we
And we're
have
already kind of on the way, not to cut you off, but we've a product has been sold under this
yeah,
this company's name.
I think if we double in size, I think we will have if we at least double in size, I think that reflects a couple of things. One, we have more work that needs to be done, and we've reached critical mass where we don't have enough people to do it. Uh, but two, that means we are selling content. We've established ourselves, and we've not only established ourselves, but um, shown ourselves to be the type of entity that people want to be a part of. Like it's not this. When I met you, and for that matter, Megan, who I've known for 7 years, um, I thought you were a fit not just because of your talent and not just because of who you are, but you are at an inflection point in your creative journey.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've come to know, like, yes, you just became a father, so personally, you're at inflection point. Professionally, we know your story, but even just creatively, I was like, okay, he's looking for that next thing. He's looking to go from successful to significant creatively. You
Absolutely.
know, um, Same for Megan. Megan is very much at an inflection point, an extended inflection point. I've known her for a long time, and while she's been working, she's been trying to find that thing that really takes her to another level. And so my hope is that when we double in size in a year at minimum, not only is it a reflection of the work that we're doing or that needs to be done, but also that it shows that we are a place where people can be their best creatively. Like for me, you know, at this point in my career, I'm not saying I don't want to make money. I'm not set for life, but I'm not looking, money doesn't motivate me,
Mm.
you know. Um, Fame doesn't motivate me. I've been on commercials, been on national television. I don't know that there's anything that I'm going to do at this point, realistically, where more people are going to know my name or that I want more people to know my name, you know. So I'm not doing this to make a name for myself. I'm not doing this to make a buck. Um, I'm doing it. The personal reason I'm doing it is because I love the challenge of again reinventing myself. But more than anything, I do want to leave a legacy. I feel like I've left a mark, but I want to leave a legacy in that, people like yourself or others are able to walk through a door, not that I held open, but a door that I built. you
Wow.
know,
Wow.
to climb a ladder that I put in place, not just a ladder that was already there that I climbed and I helped somebody up, but like setting up a platform, like the beauty of yesterday, Friday, December 11th, a day that I would never forget, is that while I was on a Zoom pitch meeting selling my first and our first project to a major premium streamer, I was agreeing to our first sale. Simultaneously, two of my friends were filling in on Brother from Another. You know, now Brother from now Peacock is not mine; it's not my network, but Brother from Another is my show.
Yeah.
And for it'll look, it's Vinny Goodwill has done a great job at Yahoo, but Vinny has got another gear.
Mm-hmm.
J. Ed Donde is an OG. I used to get mistaken for J. Ed Donde. He's an OG, so he doesn't need me per se, but just to have established a show that is worth their time,
Yeah.
that other people, whether it's people who are established or people who are looking for a platform, can show up on and show up and be their unapologetic, authentic, whole selves in a way that they can't elsewhere. That's all right, cool. So my goal for Brother from Another is to get it to a point where it is not only appointment viewing, but a stepping stone and a launching pad, for other people. Because I mean, like I've been there and done the national television thing.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
this is not. I don't need a show.
You're not looking for
You
fame.
know. Yeah. So and likewise with Inflection Point, I want to tell stories, but I want to put people in place to tell their stories as well. To unleash their creativity as well. So
I'm
yeah.
going to ask you to repeat yourself because the point hit me so hard that I had whiplash and lost it. But the difference between leaving your mark and leaving, what was the term you used?
Like the legacy. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Legacy.
you asked
Oh,
me.
okay, it
Yeah,
was okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the beginning. Yeah, it's like, because to me, like leaving a mark is like, oh yeah, I remember that dude, or I remember
Right.
that lady, or I remember that person. I remember what he did. He was great. He inspired me. He showed me that I could do it. Representation, like, oh, to see a black so-called nerd on television,
Right.
to see a black man that didn't play, to see
Mm.
an intellectual, a comic book loving, a pop culture loving, glasses wearing, cat from New Orleans, representing for a certain, you know, segment of our culture. I feel like I put on for the whole culture, but a reflection of a certain part of the culture that maybe is underrepresented in mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool, and people followed behind him and tried to model how he did it. That's more of a mark to me.
Mm-hmm.
A legacy to me is something that is tangible, that is passed down, that somebody else can literally use along their own journey.
Yeah.
You know,
Legacy feels like roots in a very
yeah,
real way. It's got to
yeah,
be, a, yeah. I almost say basically the difference is like you see the entity, you see the person, but what you don't see is the tentacles that are holding on to so many things. I think of Bill Belichick and his coaching tree
yeah,
specifically, but it's like oh, I didn't even know that person came from. It's the if you know type of like the quiet.
yeah. A legacy transcends the origin, as
Mm,
in like there is there doesn't even have to be a name, an individual or an entity attached to a legacy. A legacy reverberates through generations. And so I'm not just looking to create generational wealth for my family. I'm looking to create, hopefully lasting impact in this medium of storytelling. Storytelling is an important part of our society. It's an important part of our existence. And if I can, like I said, you know, build doors that don't necessarily have to be held open, but remain open for people coming
mm,
behind me that may be even better than me, uh, when it comes to storytelling. People who just need an opportunity or who just need somebody to believe in them.
Right.
Because it might not even be a direct descendant of me. Like, what if you joining Inflection Point Entertainment takes you to a level creatively and even specifically comedically
Mm.
where you end up as the next in line from, and I hope this ain't too heavy for you, but Fox, Pryor, Murphy, Rock, Hart, Chappelle.
Let go of my heartstrings, Michael Smith.
No, no, but I'm saying, but okay,
No, I'm dead ass. Yeah, go ahead.
but if you end up there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Then what comes from you? You know what I mean?
yeah. No,
What you know what I mean? So my legacy may not necessarily be what somebody does with me, but it might be a seed that I plant. You talk about roots, it may be a seed that I plant in you,
mm-hmm.
and it may be my legacy could very well be your fruit. You
Yeah.
understand
I
what I'm
mean,
saying? So it's like,
that's, I mean, as and I not to as heavy as that was, I want to come to the end of this and say that I'm so thankful for you and Dwayne creating this entity, this future for me and mine quite specifically because we talked about it before off air how you really didn't see much adversity in your career up until everyone was looking, right? I after finding my adversity on the football field and not getting a chance to play at Notre Dame where I thought I was going to play. I'm a big Baltimore Ravens fan. Everything I did was trying to get on the Ravens and be a part of that defense. But when the NFL didn't happen for me, and then me pivoting, not even real pivot. I got excited because I feel like I was supposed to help people, and I thought NFL was going to be how it's done. But I believed so much that I was supposed to help people that I was like, oh, I'm excited now. Maybe it's going to be this media thing that I've been trying to work on since I was in seventh grade, right? But I didn't experience any inflection points in that realm up until recently, up until when it comes to meeting you and that exact moment in my life. And I thank you so much for helping me during that transition. And as you were pushing me to be my best self during that process, ever since we met, I'm over here thinking, I was like, doesn't he know I'm in the middle of an inflection point? But you talk about there's no beginning in, you don't know how long that is, but it, this, this company, this platform, this avenue, this family that we're building, and that's why I'm so glad you said your goal is for us to double in size. It means there's more work to be done, but there's also more people to be a part of this legacy, more people that could tell their stories and are in this time of inflection points that are going to be so pivotal for their career. You just told me last the conversation that we've been alluding to change how I'm thinking. And I realized then that's what I needed help with. I needed help being told that I needed to change the way I'm thinking and to have an avenue to put on a new lens as a whole for my entire life, for entertainment, for how I looked at content. And I'm just so excited because it feels like a roof has been taken off in a way so that the growth is exponential. I feel now read more I was going to say a word that I had no business saying, but I'm excited again. I'm reinvigorated, something like that.
reinvigorated. Yeah, yeah,
Reinvigorated.
yeah.
Yes,
Reinvigorated. Yeah.
I believe in me again. I'll say that, and I
That's
thank you
it.
for that.
And no, and that means a lot to hear because honestly, it can stop there. It can stop there
Yeah.
because it's not about whether or not you succeed in all the things that we talked about a minute ago. It's about believing that you can and waking up every day trying to achieve it. It's about the process. It's about the journey. The destination is great, but it's about the journey. Like getting there, figuring
Absolutely.
it out is fun. And so if you believe in yourself and you maintain that belief, and even when that belief is challenged, you fight for that sense of belief. Um, the rest will come or it won't, but you'll spend your days fulfilled
Mm-hmm.
chasing chasing that goal. And that makes two of us, man. Like I'm re-energized and I'm more creative now. Like I'm out just stopping bullets right now, man. Like there is no spoon for me right now, man. Like I am unplugged, you know, from the matrix that was the worldwide leader for 15 years. And even when I got unplugged, if I could stay with this. So if you remember in the Matrix, Neo got unplugged and he didn't immediately start flying.
Oh, no.
Like when he got unplugged, Morpheus still had to convince him that in this system, some rules can be bent, others can be broken. Like, that's not air you're breathing. He had to train him to free his mind.
Right. Yes.
It took
Yeah.
him a while
Yeah.
to free his mind. So for me, I got unplugged in September of 19, but my mind is really just starting to be freed
Mm.
just now from all the shit that I had been programmed to
That's it.
believe.
And that's all it is. Programming.
You know,
Programming. Well, I thank
so
you for your time, brother, and I'm looking forward to the future. And I don't know, I can't say enough, man. I'm so thankful, and I'm proud of you. I'm happy to be along on this journey, and it feels like I'm at the beginning of
yeah,
where you want to be, and I'm happy to kind of just be on this train with you,
bruh, let's roll. Let's make something special.
man.